Why do some deals sail through while others drag on for months? In this episode, I'm joined by Natasha from Property Progressors. She's built a thriving business helping estate agents speed up sales progression and reduce fall throughs. If you're drowning in chasing chains or just want your pipeline to convert faster, this is a must listen for you. Hope you enjoy it. Natasha, welcome to the podcast. So, for those who don't know your background, how have we got to where we are today with yourself?
Yes, so thank you for having me on, first of all. And yeah, my background, well, I've been in the industry now for 14 years. And so I was an estate agent myself in and around London for 11 years. And part of my stint as an estate agent, I was a self employed agent for one of the very first self employed models. And the reason I started Property Progressors was because when I was a self-employed agent, I felt very much like a one-man band. Obviously, that was in the early days as well, so we didn't have as much support then as we do now. We was taking photos on ourselves on cameras and going on photography courses and things. Um, so yeah, when I was a self-employed agent, I very much felt like um, the team that we had doing sales progression, it felt really impersonal and they were really stretched. Um, and I had such a good relationship with all of our buyers and sellers up front. And then we'd hand them over to the sales progression team and they just weren't offering the same level of service as I was up front. So it was not anywhere near an extension of my team. So with that, when I went on maternity leave, I had a lot of time to think, and I thought, "Do you know what? I think I could do it a lot better. I think I could do it 10 times better and make it a really personal service." So when I launched Property Progressors, it was me doing the sales progression um, on my own. And the main aim was to provide the service that I needed when I was a self employed agent, basically. So to be available, not overstretched, to make sure that I can provide that really personable level of service, available on the phone. You know, when people call, you need to be able to answer that phone call. If something's going wrong, stopping somebody from spiraling is really important in the moment. Um, so yeah, that's the history behind how we are where we are today with Property Progressors.
And what made you decide to go in the sales progression route? Because I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of sales progression. I think if there's one job in a estate agency that I'd be like rolling my eyes at, going, "Oh my god, do I have to do that?" It would be sales progression because it's just solicitors, and no one ever says thank you until the very end. It's a long process, etc. So, what was going through your mind when you obviously had an estate agency business, and then you thought to yourself, "I'm going to pivot this from being an estate agent and sort of on the front line effectively to then moving over to the progression side." What was kind of the motivation there or the deciding factor for you in your head?
Well, there was a few things. I mean, I am one of those weirdos that does love sales progression. So self-professed weirdo. And also, from a personal perspective, had my daughter and I didn't want to work weekends anymore. So that's really two simple reasons as to what led me down that path.
And so I speak to lots of self-employed agents, as you might imagine, being in my job, and there's a whole range of views on this. I have my own views, and I'll bite my lips slightly. And there's agents out there who are like, I'm one point of contact from start to finish, and it's kind of you sign up with Chris, it's Chris from start to finish, and that is right the way through from sort of leaflet going through your front door effectively, right the way through to kind of keys handing over. And there's other ones that stand there and go, well, I didn't really, start my own self-employed estate agency business to do sales progression. Thanks very much. I do it because I like listing properties, selling properties, negotiation.
Yeah.
Where do you sit on that? Because obviously, I mean, you're obviously gonna be biased because you've got a property profession, a progression company. But what would you say to those people who want to do it all themselves?
Look, I think I understand why. You know, it's that bespoke level of service. I think really, are you offering the best service to vendors if you're doing everything on your own? Because, you know, I always think in a situation, for example, if you've got a buyer and there's been a survey and the surveyor's pulled property apart and the buyer's panicking, they call you, you're on evaluation or reviewing, you can't answer that phone call. Who's the next person that buyer's going to call? They're going to call family members, friends, and they're probably going to get quite bad advice. Renege the price, pull out of the sale, and need to get the works done. So I actually think it's it's almost, and but I am biased because I do have sales progression company, but I think it's almost an injustice, because I think that you need to be available to take those phone calls. It's so pivotal. And so our fall through rate is 17.8%. And I'm a strong believer that it's no, because we are available to talk people off of a ledge when they're and stop people from spiraling when they're panicking. Um, and I know so many agents, I speak to so many agents about this, where they're like in appointments and their phone's pinging off and they're doing an appointment, but they're sort of torn between, oh, I can see something's really kicking off here, and but I'm doing this valuation. So that's my view on, the service levels to the vendors. And we've got a lot of agents that we work with. We do white labeling as well, but we've got a lot of agents that we work with that actually they don't go white labeled, and they sell it on their valuation that we've got specialists that take care of the transaction. They're part of our team, but they're specialists in property transactions. And so you have somebody that's dedicated and loves that part of the job, and that's part of their pitch when they're on the sofa. So yeah, he did get a very biased answer there.
No, well, that I fully expected that. I wouldn't see you having an answer any other way, sort of thing. So talk me through. So obviously you started off as looking at it going, okay, the sort of chapter I'm at in my life at the moment is, I've got a family now. I don't want to work weekends and kind of want to free that stuff up. At what point did you go, actually, there's a demand for this? Because obviously we met at a nested event a little while ago, and you've scaled massively since you first launched. So talk me through that journey of sort of from first day through to where we are today and the sort of size of your business.
Yeah, so when I first started, the agents that I started working with, they were all so close to burnout, a lot of them. So that gave me a lot of passion because I felt like I'm really helping these people, and how on earth would they be able to do what I'm doing on their own, Because since when I was a self-employed agent, sales progression is 10 times more complex now than it was back in 2017 when I was a self-employed agent. So I really do feel for the agents that are doing it all themselves because it's so challenging. Um, and yes, obviously I was given a great service, and I saw how much it was helping those agents. And I got to a point where I was at full capacity. I wasn't going to take on any more because my whole goal in this was to keep my pipeline low and offer the best level of service. And so it got to a point where I had more people coming to me, and then I had to make a decision. Do I just say, no, I'm staying freelance, and not taking on any more clients? Or do I see if I could grow the business? I didn't have any money to invest into a business. So I put an advert on LinkedIn, and I found who is now my number two, Joss Merry, who is the best sales progressor. She's so amazing. Um, and I think if it had gone wrong with her, I probably would have been like, right, don't have any more money to go anywhere from here. I'm staying freelance. Um, but each and every single member of the team. So when I was hiring, I felt like we needed people with experience. So I only took on people because I couldn't train people. I was doing my own pipeline. I needed people to be able to hit the ground running. So all of our team have a minimum of 10 years experience. Um, and each and every one of our sales progressors is so fantastic. I would say they're also my friend as well as team members. So yeah.
Oh, great words. Brilliant to see you grow. So I suppose the big question that I always wonder, and I would love your view on this. Why does it take so long to buy a home in the UK? I mean, I'm sure you've got the average figures with regard to how long it takes to buy a leasehold or a freehold property at the moment. I feel like I could learn Japanese in the same time it takes to buy a home. Like, why on earth does it take so long to buy a home in the UK?
I think there's a whole host of reasons, to be honest. There's not one particular reason that you can put your finger on. I think conveyances are really overstretched. Um, so I think that each individual conveyancer is given way too many cases to handle. That obviously will slow things down. Um, and I also feel that as an industry, we're not doing enough to educate our vendors upfront. So we always get the case where we've got a vendor, and I hear it time and time again, like, this vendor's not motivated. Do they even want to sell their property? And it's such a common phrase that we hear. And we could be doing so much as an industry to go, right, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to have a 15 to 30-minute call with all of our vendors as they're listing whilst we're getting their photos prepared. And we're going to talk them through some data and get them really educated and on board so that they know when they accept the offer, that's when the hard work starts. Because it's easy to say, once you've accepted the offer, the hard work starts from here. Unless you back that with figures and data, and actually show people why, when you accept an offer, you've got a two-third chance of it going through. 1 in 3 sales fall through in the UK. So I think we could do a lot more as an industry to prevent sales from falling through. And then you've got the classics like survey issues and down valuations as well.
I think that I can't remember where I read it. It was quite a few years ago, so it might be out of date now. But certainly, I think I read that the average person thinks that it takes about 6 weeks to 2 months to actually go through sales rejections. That's kind of like that's their expectation. Like, oh yeah, we're in October now. I'll be in by Christmas, sort of thing. It'll go through nice and quickly. But obviously, the
Yeah.
reality is a lot longer than that. So I think automatically, without educating people when they sell their property, they're going to be disappointed. They're going to be straight away disappointed because they're thinking 2 months and you're thinking six. Like that there's automatically a kind of a gap between those two. So if I was gonna make you the let's say I'll make you the housing minister for the UK tomorrow, so don't know whether you want that job or not, and you get a magic wand that comes with that job. What are the reform changes that you would put in place to sort of make that process less painful, let's go for?
First thing I would do is I would make the Gazelle agreements, I would make them legal. I would make them a legal requirement for a property sale. And so, yeah, I had a conversation with Brian Mansell and all of the details of that Gazette agreement that he was going through with me. I just thought, this is exactly what we need. It sounded so fair. It wasn't an agreement to catch anybody out. It was really fair. And I think we've all seen buyers go AWOL and pull out of sales the week of exchange, and how much that crushes people's lives. And sometimes you never even get a reason as to why. And so I think Gazelle agreements would really hold people accountable. People wouldn't just make offers and get offers accepted willy nilly, because people do that. I think we've all seen buyers that have made several offers on properties. Uh, and also sellers that have just changed their mind throughout the process. So yeah, I would definitely make Gazelle agreements legal. And I think I would put probably some legislation in terms of how many cases each conveyancer can take on, which would probably be difficult to oversee. But I think that's quite important as well. But from what I understand, there's a real lack uh, of people going into the conveyancing industry. So I think it's a manpower problem.
Is that I mean, obviously, I'm not expecting you to sort of big up conveyancer's salary here, but surely anytime anyone says to me there's a lack of people going into the conveyancing industry, for example, I think to myself, well, either it's a crap job that nobody wants because they feel like they're going to get, beaten up by estate agents and homos twice a day sort of thing, or they're not getting paid enough. And that's simply put that they look at the salary and go, do I want to get paid 30 grand a year to work these hours and have, 200 cases on? Probably not sort of thing. So I guess there's probably attractiveness of job role, which is, for somewhere.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I'm always very careful. I know in the industry, we always hear people talking about conveyances and complaining. I'm always very careful in that respect because I'm a big believer that all conveyancers want to do a good job. I just feel like they're really overworked, and there's not enough people in the industry. And like you say, um, they're not getting paid enough. I remember speaking to director of a conveyancing firm once, and he said, "Look, as estate agents, this is how much you get paid. You get, for example, £5,000 for selling property. As conveyancers, they get about 800, and they've got so much more responsibility. I'm not undermining estate agents' work. Obviously, I don't think estate agents are paid enough either. But when you look at the responsibility that conveyancers have, they're not paid anywhere near enough.
Mm, yep. And do you find that in general, kind of exchange and completion times are increasing, or are you find stable at the moment, or where's the flow of time when it comes to properties going through?
So, absolutely, they're increasing. I have this conversation all the time because our timeframes are 11 weeks for freehold, 13 and a half weeks for leasehold. We do a lot of leasehold that's EWS1 and FRA EW. Um, but I think I have this conversation because I think I remember if I was to rewind about 8 years, I was tying up sales when I was on the high street. I was tying up sales, and I put on the memorandum of sale 8 to 10 week exchange, or 6 to 8 weeks exchange. Sometimes it depended how I felt on the day and how motivated I thought the buyer and seller were. But um, you know, that's not conveyancers would laugh at you if you put that on a memo these days. And so whenever I tell people our figures and the average duration, I always think to myself, it's just not where I want it to be, you know? I remember where we was once upon a time, and I don't really feel like saying that I know it's great for where we are in the industry now, but I really want to work on rewinding and bringing those timeframes down. But it's so difficult because there's so many more hoops that we have to jump through these days, as agents and conveyancers. So yeah.
So if you were a self-employed agent again listening to this podcast and you thought to yourself, right, I want to get my sales through quicker because speed kills deals. So obviously you've probably got a better chance of sales going through. And also from a big business point of view, obviously you can clear your pipeline another time a year. So instead of getting it through sort of 3 times a year, you can get it through 4 times a year, which is worth a lot more money to yourself. So it's going to that churn rate as well. So what are some of the big things that a self-employed agent could action in their business sort of right now that you can have a direct effect on their sales, either going through full stop or going through quicker?
So I think the first thing I would do is introduce an introductory call with all vendors. So something that we've done and we offer to our agents is an introductory call. The sales progressor can have an introductory call with a vendor. It does cost the vendor money. It doesn't have to. If you're an estate agent, you're happy to spend your time doing that. But we've got figures that we go through, and the most specific one that we've got is a chart that shows number of weeks fall through rate and how the fall through rate increases as time goes on. And I think that what that really does is that shows vendors um how important it is to get things done quickly. And on that call, we do things like we ask them to instruct their solicitor, ask them to get things together like planning permission documents, building regs, fence certificates, if they're leasehold, getting together service charge statements, things like that. So I think getting the vendors well informed and educated early on, getting them ready to receive a buyer, is really important. Um, and the other thing I would do, is I would use Gazelle. I would push Gazelle, and of course have a sales progressor, because I think it's really easy to feel like the solicitors are doing everything and everything's going through. But unless you're constantly in touch like we are, unless you're constantly in touch with buyers and sellers, you can't always notice when somebody's about to have a wobble, because you're tied up in all of the other aspects of being an agent. So I think that's really important. And to grow your business, you need to buy some time back. So yeah, that's what I would do.
What are some of the red flags you look at when you're looking at a offer going through to completion? What are some of the things that happen or don't happen necessarily where you're like, that's going to be an issue sort of thing? Or you look at it and go, oh, hang on, I've not heard from that person in a couple of days, or I've not had that paperwork back. Or what are some things you look at where you're like, guys, this is not sounding good?
Yeah, I think it's silence, really. I do think it's silence. Not just not performing on time, really. I think we've got a bit of a sixth sense as sales progressors to know when something doesn't quite feel right. But yeah, I definitely think we've got a timed checklist on our end, and so each sale has got time frame as to when each milestone should be completed. And when you're missing those milestones, sometimes it's just general human error. You call the buyer goes, "Oh, I didn't realize I had to do that." Fine, no problem. We get it sorted. But when they're consistently not answering the phone, not communicating with you, not hitting the milestones, then you know.
I think that's the thing that always surprises me, pale progression. So when I bought a house, God, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I literally did the sales progression myself. It was through a regular estate agent who was buying a new build sort of thing. But I was so motivated to buy that property within a certain timescale. I was like, "You tell me what you need, and you'll get it within like 10 minutes. You need bank statements, you need like fence, whatever you need from me, like you're getting it. Like you'll get it within." The sales progressor would phone me, and I'd be like, "Right, here's your upgrade. Here's what I've done.
Yeah.
Look, I'm waiting for them, and because the motivation is there." You must get so frustrated with people who are like, "Oh, I really want to buy this house, Natasha," and you're like, "Well, fill in your bloody paperwork then. Like, come on."
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the thing, and it goes back to education, doesn't it? Because, um, funnily enough, I do actually feel like, as an agent, people would disregard a lot of the advice that I gave them. As a sales progressor, I do feel like people absorb a bit more advice than they do from me than when I was an agent, the same person. Um, so yeah, but it is dumbfounding sometimes when you've got people that really want to buy a property and then all of a sudden they're not they're not for me. And we quite often get people that push back on us and say, "Oh, you're putting too much pressure. Putting too much pressure on me." And I think we never put pressure on anybody if you're doing what you've promised you'll do. Do you know what I mean? There is an element of that. If buyers aren't performing the way they should be, then you do have to put pressure on them. Obviously, we speak to the agents first before we handle those situations, but we do have to put pressure on them because there could be another buyer that would buy that property. So they do need to perform when they've made a promise to purchase a property.
So talk me through the timescale for outsourcing. So let's say, for example, you launch a brand new estate agency today and it's all shiny and new and everyone's very excited and doughy-eyed about it. And then you start obviously getting properties on the market and selling properties. Now, again, I appreciate you got a bit of a weighted view on this. Would you be looking to outsource from literally from day one? You're like, right, first deal comes through, I'm outsourcing it straight away. Or do you think you'd get to a level where you're like, okay, I've got five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10, whatever going through at the moment, it's starting to become a full-time job, so therefore let's make it someone else's full-time job. Where would you sit on that?
Yeah, I actually feel like 9 to 12 months is where I would say self-employed agents should look at outsourcing their sales progression. It's a bit of a generalization because I've seen agents that have gone self-employed and from day one have had like 20 listings, and then you see others that it's a bit more of a slow burner. So it's difficult to say exactly, but I think as a general rule of thumb, I would say 9 to 12 months. When you've got about 10 to 15 in your pipeline, that's when I think your pipeline starts to weigh you down, and stops you from generating more new business because sales progression. There was an article in the Negotiator, and I think this figure is correct. The Negotiator said that sales progression is taking 54% of agents' time. So having 10 to 15 in your pipeline will be weighing you down quite a lot and stopping you from continuing to grow your business. So yeah.
I'm going through one of the exercises I do with agents who are struggling with their time. Like we do like a time management piece where we write down all the things that they kind of spend their time doing. I go, "Right, how many houses you got under offer at the moment?" And they're like, "Okay, well, I've got 10 under offer." And I'm like, "Fantastic. Well, industry average that I kind of know is sort of 10 to 15 hours per property going through, and we kind of multiply that up." And I'm like, "Do you realize you're spending a month of your time literally doing sales progression?" And I'm like, "Right, what's your hourly rate?" And they're like, "Well, I'd like to think it's like £100 an hour, for example." I'm like, "Great. Well, your sales progression is costing you like 6 grand a month at the moment to do doing it all yourself. Do you think you get your sales progression outsourced for less than 6 grand a month?" Yes, I probably could do. Great. Well, I've gave you a month free of your time again. Do you think you probably generate a couple more market appraisals and get an instruction on the market and sell site? And you're like, yeah, we could. Well, that's probably the way forward to go then.
That's such a great way of putting it. So I had that conversation and a bit of the same conversation, but you put it so much better than me. If I do, I I usually say to agents like you can buy back your time and spend your time on more high value tasks. And that's really it is what it is because we've seen so many agents that we've worked with and they're very hesitant. It's a big thing, isn't it? Giving your whole pipeline, that's all of your income to somebody else to manage. You've got to have a lot of trust in that person. And I completely get that. But there's a lot of agents that I've spoken to, and they've taken a little while to actually press the button and go ahead. But when they do, the amount of time that they've got back, and they, their business starts finding it so rewarding to see that as well. So yeah.
Amazing. Natasha, thank you for coming on today. You've been an absolutely brilliant guest. If anyone wants to get hold of you, what's the best way of then getting in touch with you?
So they can go on our website to book a call with me. So that's www.propertyprogressors.com. Or they can send me an email at natasha@propertyprogressors.com.
You're brilliant. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.